We were one of those traditional companies where everyone was in the office. That was how we started, and we really believed at that time having everyone working together, not necessarily 5 days a week, but certainly 3 days a week, for example, led to great results and great collaboration, and working closely together and being focused and all those things. Now, like everyone else, when COVID hit, then everyone had to be remote. But even today, we still have kind of core locations, and so we've the one in the UK and the one in Canada, in Toronto, they are the two biggest. And of our entire team, probably 500 are in those two locations, and they go in, say, 3 days a week or something like that. And then San Francisco, Sydney, and more recently Melbourne, they're smaller, but still we have offices, we pay for offices and people go in. So that's been important. And we've also done it by role. So we think, for example, with account executives, certainly the larger and strategic account executives, then we want coverage. So we need people, say, across the US, and they won't go into an office because we just can't have that many offices. So that's fine. But for, say, BDRs and for engineers, we really think that's a more collaborative role. So we've organized kind of the working arrangements by role as well.
The hardest thing I would say is culture, right? Making people feel like they're part of the same team. So we did a lot around that. Like, we made sure to do our team meetings at times that could accommodate everyone. So fortunately, we had kind of middle of the day team meetings in the East Coast here in the US, so that it would be, not super late. Like, it would be kind of evening for people in India, and it would be middle of the day for people in Europe, and here a little bit earlier. We really wanted to have everyone on the same meetings as much as possible. That took some trial and error, but it worked pretty well. We also did a lot of team bonding events. It helped that we were running that company for the majority of it during COVID. So everything was remote by default, and there was kind of a willingness to make it work remote that was pretty present at the time, just because we had to. But we did team bonding events every week, try to make sure people would get along well. Yeah, for the most part, I think it actually worked reasonably well.
In the early days, like when we were like sub 10 people, it's a very passion-driven sort of culture, right? It's like, okay, we're going to go up against this multi-billion-dollar company and slice away at what they can do because we are more nimble, we care more about our customers, we found this pocket that they're missing of opportunity, right? Let's go and get it. Let's fight. Every day we get up and we're just aligned. We're all in Slack. Everyone knows exactly what they should be doing, and we're all doing multiple things. I think past 10 people, when you get to like 20 people, you need to be very intentional about sharing why what you're doing is important at a regular cadence and come up with some really strong core values. Now that we're 40, core values are like an instrumental part of like who we are in that identity, right? And it keeps us nimble, keeps us agile. And ultimately, the goal is to empower people to get their best work done wherever they are. Like, it's not to tell people what to do. Like, no one wants to work at a startup because they want instructions and they want hierarchy and bureaucracy. They want to work at a startup because they want to feel empowered to go solve their own problems and push the boundaries for themselves personally and for the company, right? So we now index around core values a lot to empower our team. And that comes into how we hire also. Like, and that applies to engineers globally as well. When we recruit anyone for Sidecar, we're looking to see, like, is this person going to present a growth mindset, ownership, camaraderie? Will they care about who we're building for deeply in the same way that I do? In some way, maybe not exactly as much as I would care about a customer experience, right, via an email or something, but will they care about the end goal of growing this business? And I think that allows us to empower everybody to just go fight their own battles every day.
The world has made such a huge leap into working remotely in post-COVID. It's much easier now. When the majority of your employees are not in an office day in, day out, or at least your exempt employees, it's easier to enforce. Because, pre-COVID, you could have 10 people in a room and then 2 people remote. That is not very productive. That's really difficult to do. When you have the majority of people online by their laptop and knowing how to handle that, it's a lot easier. There are better tools now to create team spirit and connect people around fun activities. You do attract a certain, people who want an office, they go and work in jobs where they can go to an office. And I gotta tell you, I am not opposed to that. I would love to go to an office a couple of days a week, but not every day in the week. But then there are people who feel very strongly about that, and they will work at a place where they're going to go to an office. So I think people are self-selecting into these jobs where you feel comfortable with your remote work environment, and they have that option. I think that's really cool.
With COVID, the acceleration of remote work opened everyone's eyes. I was definitely the manager that forced everyone in the office prior to the pandemic. And so, had a very anti work from home mentality. And post pandemic, we started the business and we were starting to import from the Philippines, which, again, it was just fortuitous that was happening. And I started to read a little bit more and saw that a lot of people in the Philippines had, were working for US based companies and thought, what's the risk of meeting some people? And thankfully, we started honestly with recruiting on random websites that I found profiles on, and not knowing too much on how to validate and vet candidates and what profile and how, exactly what the process should look like. But we got lucky with our first few hires, and we managed to find some really great people that, validated this notion that maybe this could be a thing. I think we still weren't sure. And I think after hiring our first few people that really added tremendous amount of value and accelerated the growth of the company, it was then that we're like, okay, wow, like this is a core competency of our business. I think that's what differentiates us a little bit more, is that, this is part of our ethos, our DNA is building a global team with global culture. And I think we make a conscious effort to, continuously work on that. And it's not just a plug-in, this is not just we're going to supplement part of our team with a global workforce. And I think that's helped us evolve our recruiting strategy and build a really strong culture at Ingredient Brothers.